Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time around we are playing as the Empire against the Forces of Chaos on the Bjornling's Gathering, so taking the Crusade up north a little bit, and I did want to try out the new and honestly probably deproved Witch Hunter, or less effective Witch Hunter. For those of you who don't know, accusation spam used to be kind of broke OP. It had had infinite charges, and it was basically a free spirit leech that you could cast over and over again until you melted enemy lords, and you could bring multiple witch hunters, of course, making it an incredibly powerful ability. Now it's limited to 3 charges, and the Witch Hunter has had a change to his ammunition capacity, or not his ammunition, his ammunition and his melee attacks. They now are both now magical, and otherwise I do believe his pierce damage, or the amount of models he can pierce with his single shots, has been nerfed as well, so he's less effective against mobs, which previously was something the Witch Hunter was actually surprisingly good against. Nonetheless, you can see he's still very, very stylish. He's still got that awesome looking saber, pistol, and top hat there, so looking really good. Now, alongside him, of course, a pretty standard comp for Empire. I did decide to bring Boris Todbringer. Nothing much to say there. He's got his trio of debuffs or abilities. He's got the Midland Runefang, the Crush the Weak, and White Cloak of Ulrich, all of which I think are really good. And basically, if you're bringing Boris, you should basically be bringing all 3 of those things, in my opinion. They're just very, very strong. My front line is nothing fancy. Now you can see I did manage to afford 5 units of spearmen, so that's nothing too crazy. These guys are not going to do well against any Chaos Infantry. They'll lose even the Chaos Marauders in a straight up fight, much less anything else, but they will buy you some decent time. They've got 34 melee defense and decent model count, okay leadership, so they'll hold as long as they need to. Front line of 2 greatswords just to deal with some heavier enemy armor and buy me a little bit more time. These guys can hold a little better than the spears, and they will be backed up by a firing squad of silver bullets as well as Sterling's Revenge, so we have some good firepower there. We also do have a Bright Wizard, who I think is actually decent in this matchup. He does have the Cascading Fire Cloak, Kindle Flame, as well as Piercing Bolts of Burning, which is an amazing spell for those, especially against armored infantry. If you can get your opponent to block up in any way, shape, or form, this will absolutely nuke them. I also did bring Power Stone just to get extra winds of magic, and the Blast ability, which I think is actually pretty good, especially against factions with elite infantry. If you can make use of that bolt, you can kind of punch through and kill several units several models in a unit pretty effectively. Out of the periphery, we also do have Demigriffs as well as Royal Dove Griffites, so just some heavy cavalry to deal with large. Unfortunately for me, though, my opponent did bring a Hell Cannon. You can see it's already firing on my greatswords. They've already lost 1200 HP and some 7 models, so definitely some brutal stuff. And of course, I don't have heals to help them. Now, for the rest of for my opponent's army, it's centered around the Soul of Damnation, which is the Regiment of Renown Hell Cannon. I bashed it in a recent video and thought it was terrible. However, it does have the benefit here of Soul Devourer. Now, against most Empire builds, I don't think it's a good idea at all. Most Empire players will bring a cannon or 2, and cannons will outtrade your Soul of Damnation every day of the week and crush you in a pretty cost-efficient manner to boot. So I don't think it's worth it. However, against an army like mine, it's actually going to do pretty well. Once I get within range, it's going to activate Soul Devourer, which is a plus 40 reload skill ability, which means that this cannon will be firing over twice as fast. And that's actually pretty brutal. That's going to give it a reload time of, I do believe, like 4 seconds. It's going to be absolutely ludicrous. For this, my opponent's build is basically centered around defending the Hell Cannon and holding it, slugging it out in a straight-up fight. 2 Chosen with great weapons, 2 Chaos Warhounds just to provide some anti-skirmishing defense. Mirror Guard, Demon's Pew, so some decent sort of anti-light infantry options. Kolek, and then of course the Chosen with great weapons we already mentioned. A single unit of Chaos Marauders with great weapons. These guys are fairly cost-efficient against Empire greatswords, and then a single unit of Chaos Warriors with halberds, which are of course good AP anti-large, especially alongside Kolek. Now, Kolek is equipped, and if we look at the casters here, the caster's actually on foot. He is coming in with Burning Head, decent against Empire. Flaming Sword of Ruin, which I think is kind of wasted in such a very AP heavy lineup, but perhaps he intended to use it with his Demon's Pew and units like that. It's pretty well good with those. And then Cascading Fire Cloak, which is a very good buff. So both sides having fire magic here. Kolek, of course, has Lord of the Storm, Star Crusher, as well as Standard Die. So some good stuff. You can see immediately my greatswords getting pummeled. They are already down to like half HP, getting annihilated. And the Soul of Damnation. One of the other things worth mentioning on the Soul of Damnation, you can see now, look at its reload speed. Now that I flew Boris within range of it, within that AoE, it's up to plus 40 reload skill, which is giving it a reload time of 3.6 seconds on a Hell Cannon. Absolutely ludicrous. It's pretty ridiculous, and you can see these poor greatswords having a terrible time. They're already down about 3,000 HP, and it's just tearing through them. It's a very, very powerful unit in this sort of sense. And it's actually got its full ammo capacity. Now, recently the Hell Cannons were nerfed. There was a whole bunch of hullabaloo about that. A lot of people were really miffed. Unsurprisingly so. The nerf to the Hell Cannon's ammo capacity was kind of dumb. It was already a unit that kind of struggled to get its value and it was already kind of weak in a lot of matchups. So they lost half its ammo, but the Soul of Damnation actually still has the original 40 ammo capacity. So pretty brutal stuff. And on the periphery here, you can see my opponent is starting to lob some shots at my greatswords. These greatswords are basically goners. And we were going to start teeing off with our handguns and Sterling's Revenge and those units on the Chosen, but then I realized, you know what, I can't let this cannon keep firing. It's going to wipe me out in a matter of seconds, especially my own shooting. So we're actually going to push forward and let the greatswords tank this charge and shred the Soul of Damnation. You can see over the Demigraph is still trying to posture, get into a good position. The poor Maul's greatswords really don't stand a chance against Chosen with great weapons. Over here, the spears are going to get annihilated in seconds by the Demon Spew, so it's a really bad trade for me. And basically, at the moment, the match is going atrociously for me, except for the Soul of Damnation, which is basically offline in the space of like 2 or 3 volleys from my handguns. And Sterling's Revenge. My opponent does dive in with Kolek, who's popped standard die and all those buffs. My front line has buckled, the Chosen just plowing through with cascading Fire Cloak and all those buffs. See the melee attack up to 100. Not even sure where that's coming from. Where is that? Where is there? Oh, never mind. That's their melee defense up to 100. For a second, I thought it was their melee attack. I'm like, holy heck, where are they getting that much damage? But it's not. It's the melee attack. Regardless, Soul Damnation is a goner, and shortly thereafter, you can't see my handgunners are unfortunately wasting some shots still on it, but I do hit Kolek with Accusation. It's not amazing against Kolek, but it will do some damage, and you can see Boris is going to dive in. This is normally a pretty suicidal fight, but with all this firepower coming in, with Sterling's Revenge firing, with the Witch Hunter firing, we're going to be shredding Kolek very quickly. You can see I throw my spears in here. The Chosen with great weapons do have 46 melee attack, but honestly, they're not actually that efficient at cleaving through cheap infantry, especially as I hit him here with a Cascading Fire Cloak, just to give them extra melee defense and make them hold that line just a little longer. Unfortunately, I did waste, and I actually missed that, I believe. I tried to drop a bombardment on my opponent's Mirror Guard and completely whiffed, so huge mistake there on my part. My opponent, in the meantime, is trying to push through the backline, going after my Silver Bullets, going after the Sterling's Revenge. But Boris continues harrying Kolek, so Kolek's having a bad day. And of course, whenever he hits one shooting unit, he's immediately getting pounded by the Witch Hunter and the second shooting unit. So either Sterling's Revenge or Silver Bullets are always blazing away. Over here, you can see actually the burst attack from the Bright Wizard actually went in and really demolished these Chosen. These Chosen were sitting at about 4,500 HP before because the spears were doing almost nothing. They're now down to 2,500, so that's just monstrous damage from a very cheap item. It's like, I think the item costs like 60 gold, so it's a very, very cheap item. If you can get this sort of flank shot, it's well worth itself. 60 gold, about 4,000 HP, a quarter of a Chosen units with great weapons HP is easily worth 60 gold. So either way, you can see Kolek here having a terrible day, just getting pounded by all this handgun fire. The Silver Bullets just reforming ranks, and Sterling's Revenge just unloading. I absolutely love Sterling's Revenge. They're a very, very strong unit. Immune to psychology, they don't really rout. So Kolek is having a terrible time. He's actually going to break here to Boris, and so this is one of the few little victories we're having, but unfortunately the rest of my situation is very grim. The Demigraph Knights actually, unfortunately, kind of engage them into Chaos Warriors with halberds, and Chosen are decent enough against large units, so they're actually holding. And my opponent kind of blobbed up here and just crushed my infantry mob. Unfortunately for him, though, he is going to get hit by a burning bolt, and you can see it's just absolutely raining death and destruction on these Chosen, on these halberds. It takes about half the HP off these Chaos Warriors with halberds, and really kind of puts my opponent in a terrible spot. The Chaos Warriors Marauders are going to rout, and it's going to leave all these troops open to isolation. And although my opponent does have some pretty mobile troops here, he's got his Demon Spew, he's got these Mirror Guard. I do still have some great swords recovering. I've got the Witch Hunter diving in with a Slippery to tie down the Demon Spew, to tie down these Mirror Guard. And once they're tied down, my shooting can then unload on them and really start melting them. Plus, unfortunately, I allowed my relative Griffites to get overextended chasing Hounds, but they're now coming back. And once they come in, they're going to be providing that terror, which can, especially against Demon Spew, is very potent. It's not that good against, say, Mirror Guard, who of course are immune to psychology. But hence, my opponent did hit me there with Lord of the Storm, but the Great Swords will hold. The Witch Hunter is still doing a fine job in here. I actually think I was trying to path him out, but the Great Swords will hold okay against these non-AP enemy units. Spears are coming in, and now the handgun force is going to be able to kind of set up and start teeing off into these Mirror Guard. While Boris over here, obviously he's not supposed to be fighting Chaos Warriors with halberds, but because my opponent's infantry is routing, falling away, Boris is able to kind of tie these guys down. We do actually hit these Chosen with great weapons with an Accusation, which melts off a good amount of their HP. Mirror Guard are basically about to catch my shooting, but the shooting, last second spearmenting, snag them. Boris just flying through here trying to buy me some time. At this point, it's very much a game of just trying to buy myself some time. Witch Hunter is teeing off up to 43 kills, sniping these guys from the flank. Just look at this guy. He looks amazing. He's only gotten 2 accusations off anyway throughout this game, and you can see he's doing a very good job here, just sniping away at the Demon Spew, at the Mirror Guard, chipping away, trying to bring them down. As the Royal fights sweep in, and at this point my opponent's army is just collapsing to fear and terror. with 2 very healthy units of shooting still left on the field. And obviously he's done some, his army simply shattered to army losses there. The Hell Cannon was an interesting choice. I personally don't think it's a very good one against them in the Empire matchup. Because Empire, if they bring a single cannon and then fall back a little bit, they're going to win the trade with you. And you can't get the benefits of the Soul of Damnation trait if Empire just sits and trades with you. Its range is only 200 meters on the ability, so Empire can just sit there and hit you with a cannon. What's also another thing, and perhaps this, and honestly this is something I should have possibly done in this game, had I known or had I had more of an inkling that my opponent would have brought the Soul of Damnation, is hidden outside of range. Flown Boris into range to proc its ability. It only lasts about 40 seconds. And then come back once the ability had already withered away. And you can, especially if you're bring your own artillery in there and you've got a flying lord, you can easily do that. Just to proc that ability, make it waste its extra reload, and then it's basically useless. I don't think it's a worthwhile investment in most situations. Perhaps in a handful of situations it is, but 46 skills, even against greatswords, is not paying for itself. And it got annihilated in a space of 2 volleys between the Silver Bullets and the Sterling's Revenge. Otherwise, this build I don't think is bad against Empire. I think the Chosen with Great Weapons are a little overkill. They cost almost double of what Chaos Warriors with Great Weapons cost. This is 2,900 gold. 4 Chaos Warriors would be like 3,400, I think. So, and honestly, I think you'd get more out of 4 Chaos Warriors with Great Weapons. You'd have to cut a Hound or cut your Chaos Marauders with Great Weapons. But 3 Chaos Warriors with Great Weapons would, in my opinion, be better than this trio of Great Weapon units here, and much less susceptible to sheer volley fire or bombardments like the Fire Wizards. And you can see 76 kills here. Most of those were against Chosen. Some of them probably against Marauders, but absolutely brutal stuff from the Bright Wizard. The front line did terrible. That was to be expected. They were fighting Chosen. They were fighting infantry clearers like Demon Spew, so a very bad situation for them. But what can you expect? Witch Hunter raked in a surprising amount of kills, 45, most of those against fairly valuable units like Demon Spew and Mirror Guard. And of course he helped melt the Kolek down. He helped melt the Chosen down with Accusation a little bit. Royal Thorfgriff Fights and Demigriff Knights did a pretty okay job. Handguns, of course, MVPs. Boris, decent enough job at harrying Kolek. So all in all, I think this is a decent composition. Definitely some things here and there I'd like to mess around with. Definitely susceptible to this sort of build with the Soul Damnation. Nonetheless, good game to my opponent. Call me Rupert here. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe below. If you have any comments, any criticism, any questions about the game, anything like that, be sure to share them and I'll respond as soon as I can. As usual, guys, I do appreciate you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.